Hello, hello, hello. Good evening and welcome to Dragonforge After Dark. You remember me as Danger, and with me today is a very special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Titus. Uh, when the Dragonforge was still young, I was one of the first people DMing there. So
Oh,
I learned a lot of what I know from this guy.
that's very flattering, Titus. But I'd also like to say that I learned a lot from you. Uh, so we're here to talk about starting out in D&D for both players and GMs, dungeon masters, and it really is an exciting process. Like I feel like we can't discuss Dungeons and Dragons now without discussing how big of a thing it has become. Like everyone and their mother is playing it. Like my God, it just used to be neckbeards like me at their Lola's house or whatever, playing with their friends.
I it's funny you asked that because you know the guy who owned the virtual reality arcade right next to the Forge a couple of years ago, if you remember that.
Yeah.
He used to watch us play, and he was like, "Damn, you know, when I was a kid, like we couldn't play like that out in the open. We get beaten up." Like
And now,
he's so envious of us.
yeah, and the demographic has changed rather incredibly as well. Like it used to be just straight dudes. Now there's a now playing Dungeons and Dragons could be synonymous with being queer. Like so many queer people are playing it. So many LGBT people are playing it. Like nearly every queer person I know has played it at least once in their lives, and it's just so fun.
And
And it's
a lot of straight people who do play it usually play characters that are the opposite gender of them,
yes, that's
just
also
so that they can
fascinating.
feel around as to how that's like.
I feel like now Dungeons and Dragons is a pathway to many an awakening.
Many things that one would consider to be unnatural.
What? You're making queer sound like the story of ano? Sino yun? Darth Plagueis the Wise. Darth Gagus the Wise.
Dungeons and Dragons is a gateway to many things people would consider to be unnatural.
Oh my god. That reminds me of all the hullabaloo about Dungeons and Dragons when it was, I think, in the 90s. All the Christians who were mad at Dungeons and Dragons for thinking it promoted the use of witchcraft.
I'm sure they're still angry at that somehow. They will find a reason to be angry at it. Conservative Christians will be angry at anything that's fun.
That is also true. But before we start our presentation on how to start out in Dungeons and Dragons, we'd like to remind you to like and subscribe. The details are right up there. You can see them. They're just somewhere up there. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Hello, Dandy.
Ooh, we're getting greetings from the Tabletop Traveler. And Satanism and witchcraft, among other things. Yes, Satanism was that was one of the things. Anyway, let's finally start our presentation for this amazing game. And let me just get rid of this damn banner. There you go. So the first thing we have to consider when we're starting out in Dungeons and Dragons is, oops, sorry about that. Starting out in Dungeons and Dragons, the basic necessities. So the first of the basic necessities I would say are character sheets and dice. Oh my god, dice especially. Character sheets are free on the internet. You can just download the PDF and print them out in your home. There are also digital character sheets you can use. Dungeons and Dragons has an official app called D&D Beyond that you can use, but if I remember correctly, that's subscription based. As for dice, that's available at the Dragonforge. Oh my god, Titus, tell me
Ah,
about some of your yes, a
the
shameless plug.
Dragonforge.
A
Oh,
shameless, absolutely shameless this
the
plug.
Dragonforge. What's that?
It's an amazing hobby shop. Currently just online now, but we're hoping to open up again soon. But
I
tell
I
me about how the dice collecting began for you.
I got my first set of dice. I don't know. It was one. I got my first D20 from a guy named Toby Abad, who has more dice than anybody I know, and which is saying a lot, by the way. Um, I actually had my first D&D session under him. Um, if you are like, he is probably as much of a D&D mentor to me as much as you are. Like, I have learned so much from him, especially in running a horror game, which is another thing. Um, and he told me, and I'm gonna remember this forever. Uh, when somebody criticizes you for having too many dice, it's like they're criticizing you for having too many shoes. You can never have too many shoes. I only have one pair, but you can never have too many shoes. If I could have more shoes, I would have more shoes.
Ako, I I used to buy dice by the pound. I'm not kidding because I'm a store owner that gave me special discounts on dice I could buy by the pound. I don't know. There was such a dice deficit in the Philippines before D&D became popular. Like it was so hard to get dice anywhere, and you either had to have it shipped from abroad or wait until the stock came, and it took very long for the stock to come. And oh my god, when we finally found a channel to access the dice of the world, we just went nuts. We just went freaking nuts. I had like at one point uh 2,000 pieces that I've since broken up and sold off. Now I just have like I think 15 dice sets at the most. I haven't gotten any new ones in a while. And yes, we do now have local dice makers. It's amazing. That's how big tabletop RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons have gotten in the Philippines.
Not just
It's
that,
just
you can make dice. Dice making is a hobby, the same way that making your keyboard is a hobby.
yes, exactly. And okay, for those who don't know what type of dice they should get, I know everything is online now, but every Dungeons and Dragons player is going to want their own dice set eventually. The 7-piece polyhedral sets are perfect to start. If you're not gonna cast, it's fine. You can use the same dice more than once. But Chessex also has specialized dice. They have like these sets here that have like lots of d6s, which is useful if you're gonna cast Fireball. Yeah, Fireball. This is essentially a set of Fireball dice in a box. And then there are other makers around the world that are very amazing. Like I have some of my favorite sets, for example, are Kraken. But of course, Chessex will always have a place in my heart, and we have plenty of Chessex dice available on the Dragonforge website,
Oh,
which the link it's just dragonforgehobbies.com. That's
oh
just
my
it.
god! It's almost like this stream is so that we can promote the store.
Oh yeah, totally. I know. It's almost like the stream is capitalist propaganda. What?
Capitalist propaganda.
Oh no. Well, I'm not ashamed. I'm not Jeffrey Bezos. Anyway,
Yeah.
the next thing is resources. Now, one might argue that you don't really need these books. Honestly, you just need one person in the group to have the books, and the essential books you need, I would say, are the Player's Handbook for especially for players, and the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster's Manual for your Dungeon Master. I'd say these are amazing to start with. The Dungeon Master's Guide really just creates has plenty of resources about how you can create encounters and stuff like that. And of course, everyone needs diverse monsters. And the Player's Handbook is a great primer for creating characters. And there there have been many other books published by Dungeons and Dragons, both to add more to the game. Like Xanathar's Guide to Everything, if I remember correctly, also adds several class archetypes, and Volo's Guide to Monsters very obviously adds more monsters to the game.
Also,
Now,
guilty thing. I only
go.
had the player's handbook when I started out.
Yeah, I have a small collection. I don't have all of them yet, but I have most of them, which is okay. Got my very first dice from the Dragonforge because DR wanted me to. Oh, yeah. It's just the nature of things. I learned from the best. I learned from Kesh how to sell stuff to people that want it. Oh, here's an important thing. There's also a free basic rules PDF on the Dungeons and Dragons site, making it very important to start. Yes, PHB is the most important. I would argue that the group cannot live without the PHB.
Yeah, it's impossible without the PHP.
Okay, the next step. Actually came to the point where I had the pages memorized, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. If I remember correctly, page 126 of the hard copy edition is the backgrounds page, but I'm not sure anymore. And now we go to other essentials. Let me just a communication system, definitely. Since we're all just online, being safe, you need an audio communication system, at least audio. Discord is amazing. Zoom is also fine. Voice chat in any other way, shape, or form that you're comfortable with. But most people prefer Discord because, well, up until recently, you could play music on Discord. You could also control individual volumes. And uh, Discord is just handy that way. And the
I
next
miss
thing you
in-person
need,
games so much.
oh, yeah, definitely. In-person games are there's nothing that compares to an in-person game. Like just and then taking a break to eat. Ah, but we gotta stay safe. So
Actually hugging people before the
yeah, feeling the excitement together as a group. A bag of chips open on the table that everyone's gonna get their hands in. An argument breaking out because someone with chip fingers touched someone else's dice.
Oh, I don't miss that.
Oh yeah, that I don't miss. But I somehow still miss it,
In a way,
prefer
yeah.
it. Okay, and as for virtual tabletops, there are plenty, but most people use Roll20 because it's easy and it's free. There are also, I think, Fantasy Grounds is another tabletop RPG, and some people play over Discord, and others play over D&D Beyond. I think that's also possible, but I'm not sure. I haven't tried it because I've only tried Roll20. But yeah, the next slide is gonna make us sad because it's everything we need for in-person gaming. Other tools. On the left there is Chessex Battle Mat. It's see D&D operates on a grid system for movement, and a Chessex Battle Mat is essential. It's you could use a dry erase marker to mark your terrain, to draw layouts, and then you can just use figs on the squares. And then it's easily erasable with some wet wipes or some alcohol on a cloth. And you can even order that from the Dragonforge. We and of course figures and terrain are an important part of Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's become so popular now for people to make their own figures. Like, have you made your own? I know you're a Warhammer player and you paint your own figs, Titus. But do you actually have your own Dungeons and Dragons figs?
Oh yeah. um, you know what? It's right there.
Ooh. I love that the top half is for business and the bottom half is for
You
it's for
remember Cal
tamale.
Dr? You
Oh
remember
yeah, yeah.
Cal?
Oh damn.
He's just here.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Like, I'm not gonna bring them all out, but this is Cal. Because he's special. He was my first,
He was
so
your
he's
first.
immortal forever on my shelf.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I actually don't have my own. I've never tried to paint my own figs because I'm the dungeon master so often that I've never had the chance to attach to a character long enough to play a figure. Someone please let me play.
He could play when I'm DMing.
And of course,
He's a pretty
terrain.
good player. He's actually a pretty good player. Oh my god, he's a pretty good player.
What? Uh, I am a wholesome person, a holy person. I don't play with people's feelings. I promise. Paint the NPCs. Oh my god, Kesh. Yes, I welcome people pressuring me to paint my shit because I haven't painted my shit. Like they're still stuck in an incomplete state. So please,
Or
if you see me,
you could pay your
pressure.
friend. You could pay your friend who who does this, for money, and he'll do it for you.
Okay, Titus. Okay. Okay. And then there's also terrain. Terrain. These are all unnecessary, but they can enhance the game, especially in-person gaming. Like people like to customize terrain, paint their figs, have awesome battle mats. All that can enhance the game, but optional. Essentially, you could even play with just pencils, papers, and your imagination. But of course, why would you? So we go to our next slide. And of course, the most important element, the right players. Do you recognize
It's
this picture?
us. It's
Yes, it
us.
is.
It's our first campaign together.
Yes, it is. I can't believe I
Oh
found
my
this picture.
god! Look, Cal, it's us. It's it's him right there on the character sheet.
Yes. And this campaign was called Bard Quest, and it was just one of the most fun things ever. It was called Bard Quest because majority of the party were bards, and it
Yeah,
was like a concert tour across the universe we had created.
and anybody who says that the Bard is a boring class has not played D&D.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and X is a boring class. I think it's a mistake many people make. It's like if X is a boring class, you just have a limited imagination. I think.
It's true. It's actually very true.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now we go to part two, character creation. Now this is perhaps the most important speed bump on the way to playing Dungeons and Dragons. But I'd like to assuage some misconceptions that it's hard to get into. No, not anymore. It takes an average of 45 minutes to create a character. Maybe 45 minutes to 2 hours if you created a caster, but that's still nothing compared to taking a whole damn day or 2 days to create a character in previous editions of Dungeons and Dragons. The system is so streamlined that it's become so easy now. Like, can you tell me about the first character you ever created?
Oh wow, you mean Cal?
Oh yeah,
You
let's go
mean
back to Cal.
fucking Cal? Oh damn. So Cal was a sorcerer. He's a bit of an edge lord. Um, He is alternatively male and female. You know that, right? You remember
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah. You
Uh,
can change appearance to look like
he
attractive Broadway stars.
specifically Samantha Barks,
Oh
and
yeah.
uh, because it was 2012, like Les Mis was out. Um, um, so like he was really just this evil sorcerer. I really just wanted to make an evil sorcerer, but as the story went on, it was just like traveling with these bards. He was one of the only characters that wasn't a bard, and they were rubbing off on him, and he was actually becoming a nicer person. And in adventures where he would be elsewhere, because where he would come out in other adventures, even after Bard Quest, there would always be callbacks to Bard Quest where he would have to choose between doing something bad or good, and then he'd be like, "My Bard friends wouldn't want me to make the bad decision."
Funnily enough, my first Dungeons and Dragons character ever in 3.5e was also a bard. I think their name was Silent, and they were of the emo genre.
Oh no,
An Asimar bard with hair like with blonde hair, feathered hair, like with the whole thing across the face.
ASMR Bard.
I feel like that could be a thing. An ASM artist bard. It's like the quietest bard ever.
They
Wonder
start
when the last.
licking their instrument.
The last time I created a serious character was a wood elf monk named Naya who had anger issues, and she was like 4'11", and
Oh no.
and it was just also kind of funny. Um, but everyone else just a mess, just an outright mess. Okay, so Titus, I think you can take this one. Step one for creating a character is forming a character concept. So I think you can take the lead on this one.
Oh hell, character concept is very important. Actually, for me, it is the first thing. It's the first thing you're gonna think about. You want to make the dashing rogue. You want to make the. You want to make a character that's a complete pacifist. Make sure your DM and players are okay with that. You want to make a character that's based on yourself. I don't recommend it, but you can. Sometimes you just want to make a character that is a character you saw in a movie, basically. Sometimes it's an actor. Remember when Matthew just made FPJ?
Oh yeah,
It was just FPJ.
an FPJ monk, I think.
It wasn't. It was an FPJ fighter. It was an FPJ fighter
Ah, Panday,
with
Panday.
yeah with two crossbows, with two hand crossbows, and jumping around and doing gun kata and shit. Um. So yeah, character concept is very important. It's basically the meat behind your character, and let it not be said. Let it not be said that you reject tropes because you don't want to be conventional or you don't want to do something that's already been done before. The tropes and archetypes exist because they're how we see the world, you know. uh, Even when you say that your character is going to be male or female, that already has some sort of expectation attached to it, as much as we don't necessarily want it to. That's kind of how people read stories. I forgot which psychologist uh, talked about archetypes, but archetypes are very important for
Yeah,
characters.
and here's an interesting exercise. Titus mentioned earlier that you could create a character based on someone you saw in media, and there is likely if there is
Carl
likely
Jung.
a
It's Carl Jung. Thank
Carl
you.
Jung, yeah. There is likely a D&D class and maybe a race that can fit each character archetype as an exercise. Let's look at these characters here. Aragorn is the easiest one. They literally call him a ranger. He spends his time in the wild, and he He's a good tracker. That screams ranger to me.
The ranger class is based on him, I think.
I think it is also, yeah, based on him. But I think with some it has deviated since then from the Aragorn archetype.
Oh
So
yeah,
more, yeah. And Jack Sparrow. How would you classify Jack Sparrow? Sparrow.
Sparrow. He's he's either you know what he's a rogue. He
Yeah,
is
I feel
most
like he
definitely
is
a
a
rogue.
rogue. Yeah, and I would say Arya Stark is also a rogue. Definitely the sneaky assassin type rogue. I would say Jack Sparrow is your multiple skills swashbuckler type rogue. And the ancient one, well, that's very obvious. The ancient one is a monk. So there's we could do that for any number of characters.
By definition, she is a wizard.
That's technically true.
By
Study and
and
practice. Yeah.
study and practice. By definition, she is a wizard, and so is Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Yeah. Calls himself a sorcerer, definitely a wizard. Reads a lot of books, prepares his spells
He
in
is a wizard.
advance. That's a wizard. That's a wizard, not a sorcerer.
Harry Potter is a
Next.
sorcerer, ironically.
Yeah. Yes, technically. We go now to the meaty parts, choosing a race, class, and background. The basic book has like a bunch of races. These are just some of them. And they're based on, of course, many of these are based on Lord of the Rings with some deviations. And the next one is choose. Wait, choosing a class. Now, these are the basic classes of Dungeons and Dragons: Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, and Warlock. This is a page directly from the player's handbook. So if you can find it, just decide on which one you want right here. There's even a description, a small description here, a short description telling you what the archetype does.
DR and I only need this page.
Yeah, honestly, like when you just need to go to this page to make your decision, and then the rest of the book, if you have the book, it has a progression that you can follow to create your character. And now we go to some of the meaty parts of this. Is just the technical aspect. There are plenty of tutorials on YouTube. We won't go too in depth into describing the process, but these are the basic steps. Now we go to the meatier parts of the process. Uh, Create your backstory. And yeah, we beg you, especially you, Dandy, no more than one page in backstory.
Yeah, we see you there in the comments.
Yep, we see you in the comments, and we're calling you out. The first thing you have to consider is your starting level. Now, Titus, tell us why this is a concern.
It is a concern. You don't want experienced players to have to start at level 1. Um, I don't want to say it's boring because really a lot of it doesn't have to be, but you don't want to. If the players are experienced already and you're going to make them start out with just one spell, uh, especially if it's not a campaign, you don't want them to go through that. If they can handle several spells and several skills at the same time, start them out at level 10. Um, the level of your characters usually, so do babies then, and they don't have backstories. Um, so the usually a character's level will be around the same level as their sort of their background experience. So it basically shows how much your character has gone through and how much your character can actually do. Please do not start newbie players out at level 16.
Yep, that's a little overwhelming.
No, or don't start a campaign at level 20. You start a
Oh
campaign
yeah.
at level 20 and there's no room for development.
Okay, here's another important consideration. Consider that your story will be written in the campaign and not before it.
Not before it,
Like
Dan.
I there's really nothing wrong with the way Dan plays. I'd
we,
like
we just
to clarify
we
that this is a joke, but there
we
is
just
always that one player that sends you like 15 pages of backstory, and that's usually Dan. And okay,
I'm going to tell
here's
the
an
story of
important.
Old Man Jenkins when we do our horror episode.
Okay, consider your connections to other members in the party. Now, this is important. Like, you can start out not knowing any of the other players. You can start out having interacted with them in the past. That's usually easier, but that usually makes more sense if your campaign is starting at higher level. And then, of course, enumerate your character's goals and desires. The interesting thing about this is Dungeons and Dragons actually makes this a part of their character creation process in the flaws, bonds, and ideals section of the character sheet. Even gives you some sample flaws, bonds, and ideals to aspire to.
Please have a goal.
Yeah, it's important to have a goal.
Please have a goal.
Okay, so we're going.
I'm having war flashbacks.
Okay, we now go to the next question. Next step: synergize the party. Now, this is a controversial opinion in Dungeons
Yes.
and Dragons, but I don't care about party synergy. I don't care that nobody plays the tank, nobody plays the DPS. I don't care if everyone plays the bard, everyone plays monks who are all pacifists. I don't care. That's how you want to play. That's the campaign we'll go for. But it can help if your party or a campaign has certain objectives to think about the roles. As we mentioned, much like RPGs, we have tanks, which would be what classes fit tanks other than paladins? Would you say? I feel like
Well, technically anybody can be a tank now, but a fighter could be a tank.
yeah, fighter is a good
Some barbarians are tanks for some reason.
yeah, and clerics can wear full plate if they're
Wizards can be a
dwarves.
tank with the proper spells.
Yeah, wizards can be a tank with a proper spell. And next, what are your
Thog the
party?
wizard was a tank.
Oh yeah, Thog the Wizard. Now there's a classic. Okay, synergy in terms of character personalities. Now there's an interesting conversation. I feel
Please
like,
don't put your lawful good paladin in the heist quest.
oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. I feel like you just have to uh, think about what type of campaign you want and why it would make sense for these characters to be connected. Now, it's not unheard of for lawful good characters to share the same goals as any other type of characters, evil characters, even. But why? That's an important question. And an
Yeah.
exercise I do is I randomize this thing called we've worked together on a job in the past, you and I, and then I randomly choose another player for that player to have worked together on a job in the past, or you owe this player a favor. I randomize that as well, and it just helps with party synergy, no matter what their personalities are like. It just makes them more cordial to each other.
And honestly, it all goes back to the goal. If they have different personalities or the same personality, if they have the same goal, you will find a creative way to get them to work together. Because as the players, you're writing the story too. You need to make sense of the story. So if you're gonna act as an antagonistic personality the entire time, that's on you. Is my brother watching?
I'm actually not sure how to figure out who's watching what.
It's fine.
And then next we have why are you together? Okay, I think we've answered this question. Similar goals is the best way to do this. Like, I like to think about that scene from Guardians of the Galaxy, and where Rocket's like, "Why should we help the universe?" And Quill is like, because I'm one of the idiots who lives in the universe. And yeah, that just makes sense.
No, no hot takes, only facts. I take his character out. It's in his room right now, but I'd have to go all the.
Next, why would you stay together? I think we've also answered this. Okay, now part three, the dungeon master's preparation. Now, the dungeon master, as we both know, has a large responsibility to in the game. They are a player. I would argue that they have the greatest responsibility in the game, and it takes some
Arguably,
dedication. Takes some dedication to want it, but I think it's something every player should try eventually because it is an enriching experience and it will enrich the way you play if you've been
depends.
on both sides.
It depends on the experience.
Okay, the first decision a dungeon master has to make, or maybe the whole party, is whether they want a pre-made or homebrew campaign. Now, pre-made campaigns like Horde of the Dragon Queen, you can just buy the book, and the dungeon master can let the book play out.
You can order it from Dragonforge.
Yeah, you can order it from the Dragonforge. We have the books. Just capitalism ho, and don't forget to like
Capitalism.
and
Oh,
subscribe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The details are right up there. And I feel like the homebrew thing deserves a bit of discussion here. Now I know Titus is an almost entirely homebrew person,
that's a lie.
but
That's actually a lie. Almost
ooh,
everything I make has a little bit of pre-made thing that
ooh,
I bought on the internet behind it.
ooh.
I'm coming
Ako,
out. A lot of my shit isn't original.
mm. Ako naman, almost everything I do is homebrew. Uh, Homebrew. What does homebrew mean? Homebrew is basically just creating your own universe, creating your own narratives, your own story. In most cases, it's on this tits is a fake.
Fake tits.
Yeah.
No, no, no. I have to explain that. I have so many pre-made stories that I've read over the years that whenever I create a template for them in a campaign, I do it around those things.
Yeah. And a pre-made campaign is a good place to start if everyone in the party is inexperienced, including the dungeon master. The 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 dungeon master can just read and get a feel of what campaigning is like from a pre-made campaign, and it's amazing. Like for example, Horde of the Dragon Queen takes players from levels 1 to 5, and then its sequel, Rise of Tiamat, if I remember, takes players from level 5 onwards. Basically, it has a story already laid out for the players in their little universe. Next, campaign parameters. Now, this is an interesting discussion that we're about to have. What type of campaign do the players want? How do
This
you,
is so
Titus? What type
important.
of campaign do you usually love playing in?
You already know my specialty is horror, even though you and I have never done that together. But I will never run horror as a campaign because by the end of the first session, everyone will be dead. Um, the sort of campaign I usually run, you know how it is. Um, Adventure, traveling to new places, learning about lore, characters discovering themselves and starting relationships with each other. Danger and Dan's characters get together and they fuck in every campaign I do. I don't know why, but every time I've run a campaign for him, he fucks Dan's character. It's great. They role played it in front of me. I allowed it. I don't regret it. It happens every time, and I adventure.
Yeah, and there Dan confirms it. It
It
happens
happens every
every
time.
time. Starting horse rebellions. This one's curious.
Ah, yes, yes, right. During one of my adventures, Kesh played as Fluttershy from My Little Pony and started a horse rebellion in one of the capital cities in my setting. It became canon. So there is now a commune of horses with cutie marks on their butts. Thank you, Kesh, and fuck you.
Next, we have the next question. What type of what that's redundant. What tone are they going for?
No, tone is completely important from the type of campaign. The type of campaign is your genre. It's
Yeah.
it's horror, it's thriller, it's adventure. Tone is tone. What kind of horror? Is it a suspense thriller? Is it H.P. Lovecraft? What kind of adventure? Is it Game of Thrones where it's like super serious and there's like intrigue going around all over the place? Or is it like Pirates of the Caribbean where they're hijacking ships and
And
doing
it's goofy
stunts that
as
nobody
hell.
can
Like,
do?
yeah.
Super goofy.
Uh, an interesting tone and type of campaign can vary the experience greatly. For example, uh, both Interview with the Vampire and What We Do in the Shadows are in the horror genre, but the difference in tone makes them entirely different pieces of art. Like Interview with the Vampire is super serious, dramatic, and What We Do in the Shadows is goofy as hell, hilarious. There's that. Like, do you want it to be super serious? Do you want it to be a balance of both? Do you want to murder hobo? That's also valid, but I don't like those campaigns myself.
The DM needs to have fun too.
Yeah, the DM needs to have fun too. Okay. Well, yeah, we've already answered this question. How serious is the campaign meant to be? Humor is always good, but I feel like this question has become a question of verisimilitude. Verisimilitude here is a word that means how solid is the world building. Like, does it have how real life are the consequences in a medieval society? If you kill and rob every person you meet, would you eventually be captured by a band of militia who are out for your blood, or can you kill and rob freely as you please? That's up to you, I'd say.
Or should you choose to start a fire in a city? Do you actually show the players the serious and dire consequences of their actions and make them feel like terrible, terrible people for even thinking that was a good idea?
Oh yeah, and the burning children screaming through the streets, crying for their dead parents as they fizzle into piles of flesh. Yeah,
Yeah, some
that's
people don't like it when when you describe that sort of thing. You gotta
mhm,
know.
yeah. Okay, now campaigns limitations. I feel like it's an important discussion to
Kesh is always making references to my setting because as a DM, almost all the stories take place in my setting. So whatever you do in my setting, it becomes canon. Kesh has taken advantage of this time and time again. Fuck you.
okay. Now the campaign's limitations. This is an important discussion every dungeon master has to have with their players. And there are a few ways to go about this. First, what's off limits in terms of what you can depict in the story, what you can cut away from, stuff like that. This can be handled using the lines and veils system. A line, in essence, is a concept or idea that is absolutely not welcome in the story. That's absolutely triggering in the story. This could be torture of children, for example.
or
That could be
torture
a
in general.
line, or torture in general could be a line. But for example, torture of bad guys could be a veil. A veil, on the other hand, is something you cut away from. Like it happens off screen. These are things that happen off screen, basically. And next is the X cards. Now, Titus, I'd like you to talk about
Uh,
this one.
the X card is what I use. Actually, it's a habit I took from Toby from one of our earlier sessions. Because especially in a horror campaign, and I've seen people use it a bunch of times. In a horror campaign, I can't always know um, what my players are and are not comfortable with. Sometimes, and this has happened before, players only find out that they are uncomfortable with something during the campaign.
That's also true. Like
So they can't,
while some people may have a grasp on their triggers, not all players do.
yeah, some people they don't realize they're going to be triggered by this particular idea. So what happens is I have this little black card in the middle of the table called the X card. The moment the player touches that card, whether or not it looks accidental, the player can make it look subtle, whatever they want. I'm always watching that card. The moment somebody touches that card, we fade to black. We assume what happened already happened, and we move on, and we do not ask why.
Of course, there are also systems where you can have a discussion about why this was a
And you
point
should.
of concern, and if they want to discuss it, you should. It's healthy. Now, another thing is
Personally, sorry.
go on.
Yeah, personally, I always approach a player who touches the X card if I don't know why they touched it, just so that I
You can
understand
avoid
it
it in the future.
and
Yeah.
I can avoid it in the future. If they don't want to talk about it, it's completely fine. But it's for me, it's polite to ask.
And I feel like everyone should take a page from BDSM and have a safe word, especially if the campaign handles dark themes. Like even if it's a random word that doesn't appear often in the game, like watermelon or the red light, green light, yellow light system. Yellow would be a pause where you can.
I thought you said we were. Uh,
Talking about BDSM, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I'm sorry. I thought it was time for that already. I got excited.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Mm.
But yeah, the yellow would mean a pause and a discussion why the pause was necessary, and red would be an outright stop. Like you can say it a certain way because red might sometimes appear in the campaign, but yeah, it generally helps. Okay, next is crafting a compelling story. Now this is the goal, the goal for every dungeon master, game master, storyteller, whatever. It's just if your players are compelled by the story, there's nothing like being told at the end of the session that oh my god, that was amazing. Where did you're make yeah
I get
that
so fucking kilig.
yeah it's just oh,
Oh,
ah,
oh god. Oh,
ah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it's just so fulfilling. It's like mm.
And DMs can feel that way about their players, by the way. Sometimes the players do something amazing, and you're just.
Okay, now crafting a compelling story. One way to do this, which will please Dandy, is to incorporate their backstory
That will be
into
less than
this.
one page.
Yeah, the backstory will be less than one page, and if it's less than one page, it's more likely to get incorporated into the backstory.
That's actually true. That's why it's important to keep your backstories to one page, because that way we, the DM, can incorporate as much of it as possible into the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Next is introduce interesting NPCs. Now,
Oh man.
yeah. Okay, this is that laugh deserves a story.
I create a lot of NPCs. My brother is a very fun player to play with. And there was this one time, um he plays this really greedy dwarf pirate, and one day he came across a city where slavery was legal, and nobody had a problem in the group as far as I was aware with slavery. So I allowed it when he walked up to a slave trader and said, "I would like to buy 10 slaves." And he was really just planning on using them for expendable shit, so that he wouldn't have to risk his life, so he wouldn't have to do any work, and he'd make them do everything. I asked him to name every single one of them. I gave each of them a personality based on the name that he gave them. And whenever I wanted to make him scared, or whenever I wanted to threaten his character and make him do something, I would threaten the slaves. So in the end, they weren't, they weren't just expendable, because he's an avid video gamer. My brother is an avid video gamer, and in a video game, if you have like minions, you could just send them off and do stuff.
Yeah.
Not in my settings.
Yep.
An
Yep.
NPC is a person, and that's why having interesting NPCs is important. It gives you a hook. It gives you a hook on
An
what you
attachment.
can
It
do.
affects character
Yeah.
motivation. You have to treat them like people. Now, they don't have to have full-fledged backstories, but if they're depicted like people,
Oh, can we
that's
highlight my
right.
sister's comment?
No,
This is what he
please.
would say. This is what he would say, but deep down he'd be like, "No, I can't lose it."
Okay, next is make the characters suffer. Make them suffer. Oh my god. This
Threaten their
is
servants.
yeah. That's one way to make them suffer, but
Threaten the
making
prisoners with jobs.
but I feel like we have to highlight this particular aspect of how to make a story compelling, because conflict is what drives a plot. Conflict is what forces the players to make choices, and the harder the choices you give them that fit with the plot, of course, the more compelled they are by the story, the more immersed they are. Dandy knows I do this. I make their characters suffer so often in nearly every single one of our campaigns.
I killed his character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the last campaign I did with him, I made him suffer so much that he sliced his own throat at the end of the story. It was I tell you the whole thing, but it will take a long time.
Yep, yep.
Don't play with this man.
Okay, and now we go to the rules and the technical aspects. Okay, one thing everyone has to know is how combat works. Now, that's easy enough to understand. Everything generally is determined by the outcomes are determined by the d20, the 20-sided dice, and everything else is some form. Every other dice is some form of damage of some kind. Turn order is determined by the d20 as well, so that's easy enough. Similarly, in skills, everything can be determined by the d20, and dungeon masters have to learn the challenge rating system. Now, this
Oh
is
yeah.
easy enough. You just have to look at the average party level. Like for example, everyone in the party is level 4, then you want them then they should be reasonably challenged by a monster of CR challenge rating 4.
That's
And
usually like a party of 5 players, so you might have to
yeah,
scale it up or down.
yeah. But this also depends on whether or not they have magic and magical items. Now, magic is easy enough. If you're not using, I'd say it's important for players to know their own spells. Oh my god, like
Please know your spells.
yeah, know your spells, or at least know the page where they go on, or print out some index cards, use an app. It's all there. You have all the resources. Please don't be searching through the spell book for the spells, because it just, yes, there is an
Yeah,
app.
just
Yeah,
yeah, she uses that. She's always like um
and it's just easier if you have like all these materials on hand to hasten
ah
gameplay.
I I was their GM for that one. Whenever it was their turn, we'd have to wait like a few minutes because they were still reading the spell book.
Yeah,
So
it just, yeah.
yeah, you don't want to have to pause the game for 4 to 5 minutes because the one player is still learning their spells. Learn your spells before the game, please.
Yeah, that just helps. Okay, now we go to rewards, treasure, and magical items. Now this can be a bit of a pitfall for dungeon masters. Being too generous with treasure and magical items can break the game in incredible ways. It will ruin the challenge rating. For example, if you give them magical items that are too powerful, that are quite powerful, and they have enough of those magical items, it may offset the challenge by a lot. They may breeze through. Uh, they may breeze through encounters and stuff like that too quickly.
Please do not give your level 1 players a lamp with a genie inside.
No,
It's a bad idea. It's a very
an
bad
important
idea.
example here would be what was that?
Oh,
Oh, you can find the appropriate reward systems in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Actually, you can look it up.
yes,
What's appropriate for this
that's
level
pretty
of
good.
encounter? Yeah, it's there. It's there, and there's even a randomizer system. You can, for example, you have to roll for the amount of gold they get that session, and then they can just get that much. You don't have to give them like an exact amount.
They really do have an app for everything.
Oh yeah, they. Oh yeah. Fun
They're
fact:
always going to ask.
do not put a bag of holding in another bag of holding, or or any other magical storage type. Do you know why? It's going to cause an explosion. It's in the rules. It will explode. Everyone might die.
I I personally do not give my players bags of holding. Anything that defies physics is dangerous in the hands of somebody who is creative.
Me, I give them the bags of holding, or specifically the Heward's handy haversack, because I don't want to deal with encumbrances. I don't
Oh,
want to deal with weight.
I usually give them a horse and a wagon, never a bag of holding. They always use the bag of holding in combat. It's like they will find a way. They will find a way. They always find. Is my brother still watching? They will always find a way.
Okay, next, part 4. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. It's very true.
Part 4: better gaming habits. Now, these are just tips that we've uh, accumulated over time. Titus and I talked about this for the other day. Now, for all players, I think it's important that we not think about it as a players versus dungeon master game unless that's the agreed upon dynamic. I know that's your
Where's my
dynamic
brother?
with your brother Titus. So, oh my god.
Yeah, yeah, that is exactly what he did. He started a fucking movement. He started a movement.
A horse revolution. Okay. Uh, it's easy to fall into this type of dynamic, players versus dungeon master. But I think it's better if we think about it as a collaborative endeavor. We're here to have fun. We're here to create a story or whatever the goals of the party are. And it's a united goal. It's
And
everyone's goal.
honestly, your GM is not trying to kill you. I mean, if you
But
died, there would be no more game. Like he's only trying to make it look like he's trying to, but he's not.
yeah.
Unless it's me for particular circumstances. But yes.
Yeah. We talked about this. Everyone plays a role and has a responsibility to the game. And now, for the players, particularly the player characters, know your character. Yeah, yeah. You're not, unless you're playing a direct variation of yourself. You're playing a character, and you have to play according to that character's whims. Okay, be
Um,
present. Okay,
I
you
think
had, you
knowing
had
your
something.
character. Sorry, yeah, I think knowing your character is also a bit. Also know that you are not bound by what you've written for your character. Your character can change,
Yeah, exactly.
and there are actually points in the game where you might want to consider: is my character going to do something uncharacteristic at this point because of the exceptional circumstance? You never know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, growth is a thing that happens, and it's important. Otherwise, why write a story?
What, people get better? What?
Okay, be present in the game. Now, I don't mind phones out at my game, but I really like it when players are attentive. Like they're there, they're present, they're listening. Like I feel like it's rude if you're constantly distracted. This is a thing that happens. Okay, and it just helps to be present in the game. Okay, now this is important. Do not hamper the fun of others.
Please.
Like, yeah, it's just common sense. If you're everyone should be having fun or some variation of fun, and if you're actively out to stop other people from having fun, to mess with other people, you're a bad player. And you can make the excuse that your character would do it, but no, you still made active choices as a person to make your character like that. Your character would do it does not excuse you from asshole behavior. It just makes you an asshole with a character.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell. I mean, a character that isn't fun to play with is only made by somebody who isn't fun to play with.
Exactly. Exactly. And here, remember that the DM is also a player. I Again, this goes back to our thing with the players
Please.
versus DM. We're not like a gaming console that produces fun when you put like tokens into us. We're also people, and we want to have fun. And if it's not
We're
fun
people,
for the,
guys.
yeah, we're people, we're humans. No matter
I
how
mean,
long
sure,
our
sometimes we
beards,
ask for money, but we're still people.
we're still people. And here's a hot take. Do not expect the DM to know all the rules.
Are we thinking about the same person, DR?
Uh, please do not insert. I mean, not without their consent. I mean, if they like it, Kesh. I
I,
mean,
I,
if they like
I
it.
personally don't. It's not my thing.
Me, I don't know. Take me out to dinner first. Okay. Do not expect the DM to know all the rules. Now, for example, there are, I think, 8 rule books, 8 or 9 rule books
And
for
there will be
Dungeons and
10
Dragons.
next month.
Yeah, there will
I
be
don't
10
actually
next
know
month.
that. I just know that there will be.
And for example, if we think about other games as well, Vampire the Masquerade, for example, has 5. 2 more have just recently been released. The the brain has its limits. We cannot stuff all of that perfectly into our minds. And we won't need all of that at any given time anyway. Like, for example, if nobody's playing a wizard, nobody needs to know the rules for wizards. But if someone's playing a wizard, they should at least know the rules for playing wizards, the rules for their specific kind of spell casting, and so on. Like, everyone has a responsibility to the rules.
Oh, not just that. It's also, yeah, it's very much like being a tournament organizer in Warhammer. If you're the only person there who knows the rules and everyone just expects you to, and they get annoyed when you have to look at the book, you know what it's like. And also, another thing to consider about your dungeon masters is we know a bunch of other systems. It's not
Mhm.
just the indie fifth ed. We've had to learn Call of Cthulhu. We've had to learn Fate. We've had to learn a bunch of other systems, and we will get confused from time to time. So please be
Yeah,
nice to us.
yeah, and yeah. Come in with the right mindset. Oh, I feel like this is Titus's purview right there.
Oh gosh, yes. Please, be in the right mindset. For example, if you're doing a horror campaign and you're not going to play a horror character, you're not going to walk into any of the dark caves, you're not going to walk into any of the dark basements because you know there's going to be something bad in there, and you don't want to get scared. Why did you join a horror campaign if you don't want to get scared? um it's not always our responsibility to put you in the right mindset. You have to put yourself in the right mindset, and it's kind of like I think you mentioned it sometime in a conversation before, DR. This isn't this isn't cinema. When
Yeah,
you're watching a movie, everything is already imagined for you. You have jump scares, you've got special effects, you've got imagery, you have actors, you have these amazing actors
yeah.
performing the
Music.
entire story for you, and music and everything. You can have some of that here. You can even have an actor who is also a DM. And um, but the thing is, all of this stuff, it's happening in your head. It's the theater of the mind. If all of this stuff is happening in your imagination, you need to be of the right mind to actually imagine these worlds come to life, because ultimately it is you that brings the world to life. If you're not listening or you're not playing, then
Or you're
you're
purposely willing yourself not to get scared. Like, you're not purposely not imagining it. Yeah,
or not willing yourself to get sad when
yeah,
somebody your character knows dies,
yeah.
it's not going to happen. We can't make it happen for you. The other players can't make it happen for you. It's the mindset.
Yep. And now for the dungeon master. Know the yeah. We just talked about how the dungeon master shouldn't know all the rules, but we should. I Yeah, this is definitely true. We should know the basics of the rules, the most
There's no
important
excuse.
rules. There really isn't. We have to know at least the most commonly used things, the most commonly occurring things, like combat. We need to know the rules of combat, of skills, the challenge rating system. Those are the things we need to know as dungeon master. How do you know which part is the basics? I would
It's
say,
labeled in the book.
yeah, it's labeled. It's labeled in the book.
It's literally
Also,
labeled in the book as basics.
I would say it's the most commonly used mechanics. In Dungeons and Dragons, it would be combat definitely. Uh, you should know the rules of combat from top to bottom. You don't have to know all the dice for all the weapons. That's something you can look up instead, but you can at least know how the sequences go, how the monsters move, etc., etc. Now we next is remember what the players want. Okay. This is a mistake I've made myself because I always try to inject a narrative into the story, but then that may result in a thing that's called railroading. Railroading is the act of basically putting the players on a track to where the dungeon master wants, forgetting what the players actually want. And there, respect
Some
players.
players, and you'd be surprised what different players want. Different players want different things.
Yeah, exactly.
Some players don't even want a narrative.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to treat the world as a sandbox that you explore forever until the day you die. That's fine too.
Or they don't die.
Yeah. Okay,
Sometimes they just
respect
don't die.
players' limitations. That should go without saying, but we'll reiterate this point anyway.
I mean, you allowed it. You allowed it, and she did it
Yeah, yeah,
several
yeah.
times.
Those instances were all consensual. All consensual. We planned it beforehand. They asked me
They didn't
beforehand.
tell
I
me.
asked
They didn't
them.
tell me.
We wanted to surprise you.
I was surprised.
Okay. Enforce fairness in the game. Now, this is important. Now, fairness isn't always keeping all the players happy. It's sometimes making compromises, following the rules a certain way. It's it, it's important to be consistent in this regard. If this is how you ruled on a thing before, I think it's only fair that the ruling will stand for other players thereafter, unless the players agree. Uh,
Holy shit, Toby's watching. Hi, Toby. Anyway,
yeah,
I love you.
and I would say conflicts are an eventuality in every party. That's also part of your job as the dungeon master to manage. And there, for dungeon master, remember to have fun. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you're not having fun, you're not doing your job right. You should be having fun.
it's fun. It's fun. I promise it's fun.
It's supposed to be fun. It's yeah.
It's very fun. Miss you too.
And yeah, there we end with our presentation. Now we go on to the question and answer portion. Oh, here's an interesting thing. That's an amazing, highly sensitive work there, Toby. Yeah, that's just perfect. Now, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask away. Stories we can talk about. I have a lot of stories as a dungeon master myself. I think since I started playing Fifth Ed, I've DM'd like 37 campaigns. 30 of them, 25 of them Dungeons and Dragons, I would say.
You know, there's where DR and I differ. I think I don't know if this is the right stream for me to be saying this, but I've kind of outgrown fifth.
Fifth Ed is a good place to start, though. Like,
It's a good place to start, but it's not my favorite. It's actually not my favorite.
what is the current stage of that Elfer purge in Tits's world?
They're still looking for him.
Hmm.
That's all I'm going to say, Cash. They're still looking for him. He's
Yeah,
he's out
fifth
there.
edition is is the great starter these days. Everyone, a lot of people make their start in fifth edition, and it's fine.
It's it's the
Ako,
marijuana of tabletop RPGs.
it's
It's a gateway. It's a gateway drug.
it's the gateway RPG. And me, I got tired of it for a while, and then I went back to it, and I had a newfound appreciation for it when I came back to it because it's so easy. All the rules are streamlined after having done all these complicated campaigns with all these complicated rules. When I went back to fifth ed, I was like, oh wow, this is nice. I finished character creation in 45 minutes.
Actually,
That's
yes.
fun.
Fifth ed is actually one of the things I love about fifth ed. Also, um
The
is
support
just
and the apps.
it's
Oh yeah.
yeah, and there is so much content
Yeah,
because
there
it's
is.
it's such a widely popular it's such a widely popular system. There are so many dungeons and adventurers, homebrew classes, and
So much
even
art being made for
items.
it.
Like if if a monster exists, there are fifth ed stats for it.
Yeah.
Even
Ooh,
if it's
it
a like you know
how to deal with difficult players.
you should know. It takes one to know one. I love you.
Oh, okay, how to deal with difficult players.
Um.
In
Oh
this
wow.
case, it's common to have difficult players who like to play the way they want and tend to be insensitive. You just really have to enforce the rule. Everyone should be having fun. If nobody is having fun with that player, you could talk to them privately. I would call them out. Hey, this behavior. Hey, I know you have fun doing this, but when you do this, it makes the other players feel like this, and I'd like it if you could stop so that everyone can have fun. And if they still refuse, then you might have to reconsider that player's status in your game. Unfortunately, that's the thing.
There are also certain behaviors that I have zero tolerance for in my games, especially towards other players. So, um, like if you do anything that will make it impossible to be comfortable playing with you, you can't play with us. Like,
Exactly. It's You just have to enforce fairness, even if that means removing a player from the game. There are plenty of people who want to play, who are looking for a group, who don't have a group, and I'm sure you'll be able to find one player who wants to play and wants to learn the ropes. In fact, I'm playing in a group with two newbies. I have a group with two newbies right now, and it's just so fun watching them develop a love for the game, having fun creating their character, just writing down their concepts, deciding on certain things. We haven't actually started playing because I'm currently we only play once a month, but yeah, it's just fun to watch people develop a love for tabletop RPGs.
oh, Dr, we have a question. Somebody actually privately messaged me a question.
Ooh, okay. What is the question?
If you could totally rewrite the concept and system of one specific spell in D&D 5th ed, what would it be? Damn, Toby.
The system and spell.
Any
Huh.
concept or system of any spell, what would it be?
Huh. Huh.
Damn. What's your favorite spell, Dr?
What's
What's your
my
favorite spell? And
Everard's Black Tentacles?
would you change anything about it?
No, that's the thing. And now I'm thinking of what I would. Oh, Eldritch Blast.
Yeah.
I would change Eldritch Blast. I would give it more variation because
Yeah.
when you play a warlock, for example, that's one criticism of Dungeons and Dragons. The warlock class leaves very few options outside of, oh, I cast Eldritch Blast. And I feel like if you gave it more variations, different ways to enact this Eldritch magic, or other choices of Eldritch magic that can happen when they create the character, I feel like it could enrich the warlock experience even more.
I have another one. I have another one that, like,
Oh hell yes.
it's my least favorite spell. It's my least favorite spell. I personally don't like this spell. It's called Friends.
Oh, you tell.
You heard of
I'm
Friends?
Yeah, I've heard of Friends, but I'm not sure of the exact wording. Let me look it up. Friends.
Look it up. Look
Steven
up Friends. Not the TV show, the spell.
Friends
I've got
spell
my
by
I've got my own grievances with the TV show. I love the TV show.
I love the TV show. First gay wedding on TV.
Oh shit.
Yeah. First lesbian wedding on TV. Friends. It was banned in so many parts of the world. Even here.
No kidding.
Yeah. Okay. The wording of Friends. For the duration, you have advantage on all charisma checks directed at one creature of your choice that isn't hostile towards you. When the spell ends, the creature realizes that you used magic to influence its mood and becomes hostile toward you. A creature prone to violence might attack you. Another creature might seek retribution in other ways at the DM's discretion, depending on the nature of your interaction with it. Well, why this specific spell?
You see why I don't like it? At what point, at any point of that description, did you see any mention of friendship or anything that is related to it?
That's also true.
It's a complete misnomer. Like people keep like people keep you know getting this spell because they think that it's a spell that you can cast to become friends with someone or something,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
No, it does exactly the opposite. Because by the time the spell is done working, it's not your friend.
Akesh is right on this one. It's a magical roofie. I agree.
Yeah,
This
that,
the one thing I'm happy about in all the mind affecting spells like this is that after the spell wears off, the person upon whom the spell was cast knows the spell was cast, and it creates this issue of mental consent, like how ethical it is to control the mind of someone else. And yeah, yep. Okay, friends.
oh,
Yeah,
and I agree. I agree with Alvin actually.
mind affecting spells like friends shouldn't reverse its consequences after spell duration end.
And I'm not saying that they shouldn't become aware of it. I'm just saying that immediately it will become hostile. Like,
Yeah, that's weird.
it's just like that's not friendship.
Mhm.
Friendship should not lead to hostility. Friendship should not lead to hostility. I'm fine.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? There's this one question I always ask new players. Oh, here. It should be reversed either through epiphany, remembrance, or outside influence. I think I disagree with this, so to speak. I like. I disagree with you and Titus on this specifically. I think I like that the creature is hostile afterwards because this is an intense violation of their person. So yeah,
Okay. I think that should be something that the players understand when they start the game, because if you're going to cast because for some people that can actually be an element. Like if you've seen Jessica Jones, um you, David Tennant's character, right? David
yeah,
Tennant's character can make you do whatever he wants by telling you what to do. If if it can be a story point, and if your players are okay with the agency of some characters being taken away as something that is a serious part of the story, then I would allow it. But with strangers, definitely no. You never want to risk making anybody feel uncomfortable. It just ruins the fun.
yeah. Okay, here opinion on friendly fire. Now
You
this
gotta
is a
agree on it at the beginning for me.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with this one. You gotta agree on it at the beginning. Like
Some
I,
players do not
yeah,
like being attacked by other players.
yeah, and it's such an asshole thing to do, really. Like,
However, on the other hand, this wasn't D&D, but I've had a session end in a Mexican standoff between each of the player characters. Everybody had a gun pointed at somebody's head. This wasn't D&D, but it was it can be applied to in D&D. And it was towards the end. Guns were pointed at each other's heads. Bianca was there. Bianca was. This might actually be why she's asking the question. And oh my God, somebody pulled the trigger. All the guns went off. Everybody died, and the story ended. And it was so beautiful. Like the story really just ends with me describing the room with the characters all lying dead after having fought over the treasure, and it was just this shocking ending to a very bleak, very serious tale. It sometimes friendly fire can be good, but again, and this is true for every time it happens. It was based on a sort of Tarantino. Yes, yes. My peg for that particular story was *Inglorious Bastards* by Quentin Tarantino. So yes, exactly like a Tarantino film. Um, so it has to make sense in the story.
yeah, I
Please don't
agree. It
attack
has to make sense.
another character and it not make sense because the other person is not gonna know how they're supposed to respond to it. Because
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know,
And that's a direct violation of the everyone should be having fun rule, unless the player consents to it.
oh, I've been DM'd another message because some people don't have Twitch accounts. So
Okay. Oh,
they're
this isn't just on Twitch, by the way. It's also on YouTube and Facebook at the same time.
yeah. So if you want to ask
Okay.
questions, you can actually ask on YouTube and Facebook. But
Here's an
for
interesting question for Alvin. Worst class you hate DMing for? Hmm.
hmm,
Huh.
wow,
I'd say. Hmm. Now that's hard because I don't hate any of the classes.
I have an answer.
Oh, do tell.
Wizard.
Well, yeah, I would say I don't hate DMing for a wizard, but it's so challenging DMing for a wizard because they
I
have to know so
personally,
many. Yeah,
yeah, I don't hate it. I'm not discouraging any of you from playing a wizard in my games. If you want to be a wizard, I will I will personally
it's just
take the
one of the most
challenge.
challenging classes because of
It's
all the
just
spells you have to learn.
yeah, they know all the spells by default. They just have to study them.
Yeah,
And it's hard to keep
prepare
track
them
and
every day
it's
if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
you have to prepare them every day and it's so hard for me to keep track of everything. Um Another class I don't like DMing for, and I'm not gonna say I don't like DMing for this class because of the class itself. I don't like DMing for this class because this class attracts a lot of bad players. I'm not gonna say bad. A lot of players that are unpleasant, and
Okay,
that's Paladin.
I do see what you mean.
You get what
Yeah,
I
it
mean, right?
makes sense. Like there's just yeah, there's a difficulty in playing the paladin because there are
They're very
yeah,
bound by their alignment,
yeah, they're very bound by their alignment or whatever oath they may have had.
and it's very difficult for a non-experienced player to roleplay somebody who is bound by an oath because they don't know when they're gonna break it, they don't know when they're gonna bend it, and if they are just a complete slave to that oath, uh, it doesn't really give them much character. So there's nothing wrong with the paladin class. It's just that
There's a
it tends
fine,
to
fine line. Yep.
it tends to attract a certain kind of player that
Or a
is
certain kind of
difficult,
play style. Yeah, that is
yeah,
difficult. Yeah.
to play with. I am getting DM'd another question. Name your favorite fictional character from a show, movie, or comic. Then share what you think that person would play in a D&D session with you and your friends. Not the character that person is in D&D, but what that person would play.
Okay, what that person would play. Ah, that's hard. Well, who's my favorite in a movie, show, or no? That's a challenge. Mm. Hmm.
If
Have you
anybody in the
thought of something?
comments, if anybody in the comments says anything,
Yeah, if
I will
that, yeah.
probably answer it. Though I want to ask you, what character would what character would it's true,
This is true. RDJ slash Iron Man would play RDJ slash Iron Man.
and then call
Like,
it a day.
what is RDJ slash Iron Man? Sorcerer?
No, he's not a sorcerer. He's
Charisma based casting.
uh
He's also,
no,
is
actually
he a wizard?
no, oddly enough, Iron Man is a wizard. As talented as they portray him in the movies, you remember that he had to uh you know,
Artificer. Oh, there. I
he's an
think that, yeah.
artificer.
Steven Universe. Oh, Steven Universe would play a bard. He already has the musical skills. Yeah, Steven Universe is definitely a bard.
Jean Valjean plays D&D. What character does he play?
Jean Valjean. Oh, I feel like he'd be a fighter.
You know what? Oddly enough, I actually see him as a paladin.
Hmm. I
Hey,
see. I
no, remember,
see.
it's what they play, not what they are.
Ah, that's also true. But definitely, Javert would only play paladins.
Javert only plays paladins.
And Javert only plays paladins. Jean Valjean, maybe, I don't know, to be honest. Like, he could be a fighter, he could be a paladin.
John
Maybe he
Wick.
could even
John
be a monk.
John Wick would play a druid with max animal handling. Yes, exactly.
Yes, he
He's
would.
not a druid, but he would play a druid.
Yeah, he's not a druid, but he would play. Yeah, he
Oh,
would want an animal companion. To be honest, yeah, I feel like he would. And then he would go into wild shape if that animal companion is killed. Okay. Favorite character from media right now.
um,
Hmm.
would Han Solo play himself in a D&D game?
I think he might. I think he might like
Old
he
Han
would be
Solo wouldn't.
old Han Solo would be more diverse. Young Han Solo would play Rogue. Old Han Solo might play.
He'd play. You know what? He'd play a sorcerer because he misses Luke.
Ooh. Okay. Tell us about a favorite character you've played. Okay, we can both do this. A favorite character I've played would be Naya, the the wood elf monk with the anger problem, who's also 4'11. She's such a loose cannon, and it's fun. Like one time they were interrogating a shopkeep, and they were just talking nicely about talking nicely to the shopkeep, and then Naya just grabs the shopkeep by the scruff and pulls him across the counter and onto the floor, asking. I forgot what she was asking for, but it was like Batman going, "Where's the trigger?" But imagine it's a 4'11 person. Oh, not Boris the Love Hammer. Oh,
Boris,
I
Boris the
love
Love Hammer.
I love playing Boris the Love Hammer too. Oh my god.
You need to tell the people at home who
Okay.
Boris the Love Hammer is.
Boris the Love Hammer is based on that what do you call it? Based on card from Cards Against Humanity And I from there I would say Boris the Love Hammer. I I I, I developed him as a third generation male stripper.
Third generation.
With,
That's
yeah,
very important.
third generation male stripper. Uh, who has a loincloth of holding, and that's all he wears. Because barbarians don't need clothes or armor. They add their constitution bonus. I think I think yeah, they have a class feature that allows them to have more AC when they're not wearing armor. Yeah. What about you, Titus? Your favorite
You,
character you ever
you
played?
already know what I'm going to say. Actually, no. I'll tell you a story about Cal. I don't get to play D&D often, okay, so I don't actually have that many characters because I'm always the DM. So when I
I'm
get to
always the
play
DM.
and when I, when I get to play and I play as Cal, it's a treat. It's a treat for me. I'm going to. You remember that time during Bard Quest? Uh, so Cal will. Cal is a Rube Goldberg machine character. He will not find a simple solution to a problem. He will solve a problem in the most complicated way possible. Um, there was this one time we had to get through two guards, and he threw his voice. He threw his voice at a tree,
Oh, I
and
remember this.
you see the smile. You see the smile on his face when he hears the story. He threw his voice at a tree, and the tree started talking, and he just wanted to distract the guards. But the thing is, the one of the guards started conversing with the tree, and Cal, thinking that he had to answer back because he was raised in a lab, he doesn't really understand a lot of social stuff, had to keep a conversation. And the more the guy started interrogating the tree, asking why it could talk or what it was, Cal would say, "Oh, I'm not a tree. There's actually a goat uh, on top of the branches that's doing the talking. So I'm actually the goat that's in the tree." And they're like, "Really? So how come you can speak?" "I'm also a god, and you should worship me." And he starts intimidating the guard into worshiping him and rolls a natural 20. And because it was I don't know, I said something clever enough for DR to uh, allow it to happen. The lie just got bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that the next day after we took a long rest, somebody knocked on the door of our inn, and it was the two guards, and they were holding pamphlets, and they were like, "Hello, uh, do you have time to spare about Larry, the goat who is also a god and might also be a tree?" And it was a cult. He started his own cult by accident, and he started spreading that cult wherever he went because he just thought it was funny. Uh, Not many people know this, but after Cal went on several of these adventures, uh, he started growing into this edgy necromancer, multi-talented sort of character, and this actually became the basis of my Final Fantasy 14 character, who also has a very special place in my heart, who I called Ramaclus Swift. I spend more time now in the pandemic as Ramaclus Swift more than I spend as Titus Villanueva. So Cal is so much my favorite D&D character to the point that he has assimilated me. S- yeah, yeah. So like he's assimilated all these NPCs doing his bidding to the point that he has possessed me, and I live in a video game now. Like huge impact. The D&D characters just end up so close to your heart, and they're bits of you. They're bits of you that live in this world that you're that you've created.
It's so funny, guy. Like a recurring meme I see on social media about Dungeons and Dragons is how people use it to address their unresolved issues in real life, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Why do you think Cal is male and female at the same time?
And then that makes me realize that there's a particular parent that I've killed in multiple campaigns, and it's the same parent every time, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's somewhat true.
Oh wow, I don't remember, but I remember that time if my brother is still watching, he'll remember the time I let him play a Nazi in World War II. Uh, he had the time of his life, just being the bad guy. Some people love playing the bad guy.
Oh yeah, I ran a campaign that was evil. So it's called Villain Quest, and it was ba- it was funny that eventually the bad guys in the story, the bad guys, as in the protagonists, eventually became an institutional evil, and I'm like, oh yeah, that reflects society in real life.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah, she was there. She was there when my brother was a Nazi. She was. Dan was. They were the British spy, and nobody knew.
Woohoo.
Nobody knew.
Anyway,
Big shocker.
I think we have time for about one more question or one more request if anybody has. Also, if your comments aren't responded to or answered immediately, it's because there's a 10-second delay between the stream and the comments. So uh, your comments might get noticed a little late. So just please bear with us, and also like and subscribe right there. All the
Oh
details
yeah.
right there. Okay, one more question. Does anybody have a question about DMing, about starting out, anything else, or just a request? Crickets. Anyway, if there isn't, I think we can conclude this now. Titus, thank
Wait,
you
I have a
so
question
much.
for you.
Oh, okay. Before we conclude, okay, go ahead.
What was your favorite moment with me?
What was my favorite moment with you? I'm going to limit it to Dungeons and Dragons moments.
Yes, only dungeons. Why don't you include Pathfinder?
Pathfinder, also nice. Okay. Pathfinder is just a variation of Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, Toby says, "Thank you for for doing the show. I enjoyed watching. Yes, we enjoyed
I
having
love you,
everyone here
Toby.
too." Okay, my favorite moment would be, so I had a character that had this one goal that he was looking for his white father, because he was his white father in the white continent. I forgot what. And then he finds out his father was petrified by a basilisk, and so he goes on this goal to unpetrify his father, and then just to see the, well, I didn't see the reactions, but just to hear everyone's reactions, even Titus's, when my character suddenly stabbed that guy as he became unpetrified, like stabbed him to death, cold-blooded murder right on the spot as he awakened. And that was just such a fascinating plot twist for them.
I thought I thought I thought he was trying to save his father, I thought he was no, because he really made it out like it's really part of their culture to take the name of their father, and he didn't know his father's name. So I assumed it was an identity thing. Like he had to meet his father. Like no,
Yeah, I'm the tribe needed for a member of the tribe to be complete. They needed to take their mother and father's name, and he didn't have his father's name because he didn't know. And as it turns out, he wasn't interested in his father's name, and he was just only interested in revenge against the people who colonized his.
that was so fucking brutal. That was beautiful, and that was the same character that died at the end of the
Yeah,
campaign.
yeah, and it was such a one of the most beautiful character deaths I've ever
Because
encountered. Yeah,
wait, what happened? Yeah, I remember, because the father was killed in so much anger that the spirit came back, and it just became this manifestation of all the hate and all the vengeance, and it started threatening everyone and everything that was close to his character as a consequence of his hateful act. Even if it was completely valid, his feelings were valid and completely justified, but the amount of hate that he had in his heart that he just couldn't let go of manifested into this evil spirit, to the point that his character wasn't even there for the climactic boss battle. None of them were
yeah,
there for the climactic boss battle. They were
yep,
all fighting their own demons.
yep,
The dragon was burning the town, and everyone was fighting their own personal villains.
yep.
And except
I
for the guy
remember
whose
my
villain was the dragon.
Yeah, I remember my character had a choice because the ghost had possessed his pet velociraptor. He had a
Yes.
choice to kill the velociraptor. Instead, he killed himself, and the
Yeah.
ghost disappeared.
Because the ghost had no reason to stay in the world anymore. It had nobody to torment. So the ghost was eventually pulled into the depths of Tartarus. So in the end, he finally completed his revenge against his father because he was able to get the guy in Tartarus,
Mhm.
but at the cost of his own life, which is so beautiful.
Yeah,
And oh man, that was great. That was
and
so fucking
another
great.
interesting aspect of the choice to kill the father was that because he could not complete his name, he could never return. He just wasn't interested.
There was no future for this guy. Oh no!
Yeah, it was a
Remember when the tree you planted
yeah,
grew after your death, and we ended at that tree?
yeah. Ooh, here's a noob. Best questions to ask the DM to get a good grasp of setting or a character, or when describing an action. I usually overlook a lot of important things when playing. Okay, to get a good grasp of a setting or character, it's important to compare it to things you know. Like, is it medieval, for example? Is it somewhat steampunk? How common is magic? If it's Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, these are the good questions to ask about settings.
Oh, by the
About
way, Dungeons and Dragons has its own setting called Faerun.
Yeah, it does
Um,
have its own setting. It also there's a, in fact, if I remember correctly, there are three settings: Faerun, Eberron, and am I correct in saying Dragonlance? Because I've always been homebrewing, and it's just
yeah,
I don't know
VR and
these
I
things.
have our own settings,
Yeah, we have our own
and they're
settings.
just two
So
continents away from each other, so you could travel
yeah,
between both.
yep, yep,
Um, another important question that you need to ask your DM is, especially if it's a homebrew, or even if it's not a homebrew, where does your character belong? Who is your character connected to? A very good example of this would be uh, uh, when Jara created her character. Um, she wanted to make an elven princess, and the first question she asked, or one of the first, it's a long time ago. One of the first questions she asked was, um, if she's an elven princess, what is she princess of? So there was one elven kingdom, And I told her, that's your father's kingdom. Your father is the king of that place, because if you're a princess, your father is the king. And the conversation stemmed from there. Always think about where your character comes from, because it tells you a lot about where your character is going.
And get a good grasp of character. I feel like it's always, again, this is where you go back to what you know. If you have a character in media that you can describe them as, that's helpful. They don't have to be exactly the same, but it also helps. Like, for example, Titus had a character in a different setting that he described as Peter Quill like character, and I immediately understood the character's style and motivations and stuff like that. And as for describing an action, hmm, uh, it doesn't have to be too detailed. Like I attack this person is fine sometimes, but for out of combat actions, you can look at your skills. Like what you can look at the list of skills, deception, stuff like that, persuasion, and you can always just refer to these for good measure.
This is something I learned from Toby. When you are describing something as a GM or as a character, imagine that it's a movie.
Yes.
Tell the other tell the other players what the camera is focusing on.
Hmm.
Like for example, uh, you're describing the character moving through a house. You can actually describe that there is somebody looking through the window, but none of them can see it. It sets the tone. Um, like you know how in a showdown, uh, the camera would focus on Clint Eastwood's eyes. Tell everybody, if you're in that sort of situation where that is significant, where you think that in a movie that's what the camera would focus on, that's what you describe.
Yeah.
Describe what you think the camera would focus on in a movie.
And yeah,
And
this was. Anybody else have a question? I want to know where my character comes from, but no, Dan, that's too much backstory. I mean,
well, okay, I think I need to explain why I prefer not to have so much backstory. Um, the thing is, the more backstory you write, the less there is to write about your character um, throughout the story. If your character already is afraid, no, 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 I know it's a joke. I'm just describing it to the people watching. If your character is afraid of something, it might, and you write it down before the thing, they might be afraid of something that will never come out in the story. And if it never comes out in the story, you can't, invent another fear for them so easily. Or, you know, there are a lot of things that you can invent about your character that are going to be connected to the plot. Like, if you've already told me who all their siblings are, I can't make a scenario where they, you know, meet a sibling that they didn't know about. Or if you tell me who their parent or the name of their parents, I can't secretly make it one of the NPCs. So, the more you've written down, the less I actually get to play with as the DM. So, in a way, giving your character a shorter backstory is giving everyone else a chance to write down a little bit of their backstory. That way, your character, and that's why he's so close to me, your character becomes not just a part of yourself, but Cal, and every incarnation of him in every other world has a little bit of each of my friends in him. And I think that makes him really special.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with writing a long backstory, but imagine the DM has to incorporate four other people's backstories and it narrow it down. Focus on what you want for your character.
And oh, don't be afraid to be a nobody.
Oh yeah, don't be afraid to be a
CJ
nobody.
played a nobody. Remember when wasn't D&D, but CJ played a nobody who had nothing to his name, and he was so ambitious. He was so scared to die. He didn't want to die without accomplishing anything in his life. So I constantly, every other episode, tried to get him killed. It was so fun.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I think it's time for us to go. Thank you to everyone who joined us here tonight. Thank you for all your questions, your comments, and it just always helps us. The more you comment, the more you like and subscribe.
Ah,
And
capitalist
this has been
propaganda
Danger, forever game master, and Titus also a forever game master.
forever.
With yeah,
Not a
Dragonforge.
complaint.
Yeah, not a complaint. Although it's sometimes a complaint.
Some, please, please run games for us. We want to
Please
play
run
too.
games. But
I Cal wants to kill more people. He
anyway,
wants to eat
uh,
more pheasant.
this has been Dragonforge After Dark. We'd like to thank Now Open PH and Trisha O'Bannon for letting us have this opportunity to use their platform. And thank you to everyone here. Bye bye.
All right, good night, everybody.